that is claiming is okay. We might think of the Bhagavatam, got it. Might think of the Bhagavatam as an obscure Purana that is just claiming Krishna as being the absolute, or Vishnu, or the different Vishnu forms, the avatars of Krishna. But actually, the Shaivites accept it as also a very, very exalted scripture as well, and especially due to the type of Sanskrit that's involved in it. I mean, other Sanskrit texts such as the Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana have more simple Sanskrit, so it is revered. And so the Shaivites see this, and they also think of Vishnu as being the absolute. They have a different way of seeing it, but they don't see the Vishnu as being a servant of Shiva. It's like a different form of the absolute, but Shiva is the topmost for them. But here in the Bhagavatam, which they exalt, we see that Shiva is addressing the Supreme Personality of God. It is addressing, appealing to Vishnu, which is an interesting situation because, first of all, well, what's actually happening is that he's doing this to help the Prachetas. In a sense, he's giving them mantras to chant. He's giving them an opportunity during their tapasya to be able to appeal to the Lord and be able to focus their mind and fix their mind. Because this whole prayer, this whole vandana is about fixing the mind. And that's what they need to do in order to perform their duties of progeniting and also leading as well. They turn out to be leaders. So that's what the purpose of his saying is, but at the same time, he's appealing from his own heart as well. So in the Bhagavatam here, he's appealing to the Supreme. So he's placed himself in the role of servitude, a humble servitor in a sense, because he's asking the Lord in the actual text as Prabhupada is translated. He's saying, I wish that you be auspicious for me. You know, you're auspicious for all the self-realized, be auspicious for me. And then he talks about instruction as well. You should instruct me. And Prabhupada also says within the actual purport that instructing actually is not just for us, but it's for everyone, including self-realized souls, Atmavid, those who have realized the self, or the Atmarams, those persons who are open to instruction. So we might ask this question, why does someone who is self-realized, in the case of Shiva here, or the Atmavids or the Atmarams, why would they require instruction? You'd think that if they're already realized, they realize the soul, then why would they need to know anything else? They should actually know what to do from within, right? So in a sense, instruction is you could almost think of it as being moot. They wouldn't be needed at that point. They already know what to do. They already know how to function. They already know everything. But the answer to this question, I think, is two-pronged, and both are related. One of them is dealt with in the actual purport itself. Prabhupada is stating that in order to maintain, let's see if I can find it. Here we go. The Lord is situated as a super soul in everyone's heart, but he is kind to his devotees, so kind to his devotees that he gives them instructions by which they may continue to progress. When they receive instructions from the All-Perfect, there is no chance of their being misled. The Lord is always ready to give instructions to the pure devotees so that the devotee can advance further and further in devotional service. Right? So there's always the chance to increase. Right? Devotional service is always increasing. It's never diminishing. It's never static. Right? The other reason is that we find in different scriptures that different exalted personalities still appeal to the Lord in order to not stray from the path as well. And we find that also in Prabhupada's life as well. Prabhupada every day used to pray to Krishna to ask him to not fall, to appeal to him so that he didn't fall down. Now, why would a exalted Vaishnava like Srila Prabhupada, who spent his entire life remembering Krishna and not forgetting Krishna from his childhood and Ratha Yatras right the way through to his elderly, to his later days when he boarded a boat and crossed the Atlantic in order to preach in America. Why would such a person who has constant thoughts of the Lord, why would that person want to appeal to the Lord to stop him from falling down? How could he fall down? Well, the answer there is that it's a humility, right? There's a humbleness to a devotee that others don't have. the humility that they understand who they are, what their constitutional nature is, and that we're tiny as spirit souls. And that as a tiny spirit soul, an infinitesimal spiritual soul, we know so little about everything that Krishna has created and has maintained. We know so little about it. And the moment we start to think that I know it all and I'm not going to fall down and everything will be fine, that's the moment we'll be in danger. So the devotee is constantly aware of the problems of being infinitesimal, of being a small soul in this huge, expansive universe and everything else as well. The second reason is connected to this, and it kind of like led into it just now, is the idea that a devotee knows his or her constitutional nature. And that constitutional nature is what? It's Naham Vipunacha Naratir Napi Vaishana Sudra, and it ends with what is it? Gopi Bhartu Dasa Gopi Bhartu anyway, Das Anudasa. Sorry, I forgot the Sanskrit. It's Rupa Goswami talking about that you're not a Vaishya. Sorry, you're not a Brahmana. I'm not a Kshatriya. I'm not a Vaishya. I'm not a Sudra. I'm not a Brahmacharya. A Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyasa. What am I? Identify myself as a servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, who is the Lord of the Gopis. So a person who's pure in consciousness, one who has realized the constitutional nature, realizes that he is nothing but the servant of the servants of the servants of the Supreme Lord. And what does a servant do, right? So what is the constitutional nature of a servant? A servant is one who not only performs service, but is also open to instruction on how to perform service. Instruction is actually part of the makeup of being a servant. If you're a servant and you don't accept instruction, then what is the point of even being a servant? You're just a servant in name alone, just in form maybe. What we're talking about is the substance of being a servant. The substance of being a servant is one who is able to take on instruction and able to function according to it. And the purity of that servant enables one to hear clearer. So Prabhupada talks about the super soul. Yeah, all throughout this verse, actually, it's talking about super soul, the Atman and the Paramatman and the Sarvatman. That actually, interesting enough, in the text, you'll see, if you look in Sanskrit, a lot of the time, throughout Bhagavatam and other scriptures, you'll see Atman, and Prabhupada translates as Paramatman. It had to be clear that Sanskrit is a contextual language. The meanings change according to context. So Atman is often referred to in terms of super soul. Paramatman as well. So we have the Sarvatma who's instructing from within. And if we're clear and we performed the acts of devotional service properly, purified ourselves to the point where we can hear it, then those instructions become clear. If we haven't done that, we'll still be able to hear instructions, but they'll be the instructions of our own minds. So the purity that we perform, that we gain through performing Navalakshana Bhakti, through performing the processes of Bhakti, the Tattva Karma Pravartanat, are the means by which we can hear the instructions of the Lord. And those instructions come in many ways. Here is talked about through Paramatman. In other places, it's through Shabda Brahman, through the Guru. So many ways the instructions come to us. And one who is pure is still bringing in those instructions. We think of the example of Prabhupada. Prabhupada was constantly thinking about the instructions of his Guru and what he wanted him to do and how he wanted to spread Krishna, how he wanted him to spread Krishna consciousness. He was following that constantly. So in order to gain this fixity of mind, one has to first understand that we are humble as a living entity. We're very small and minuscule. We don't know that much. And the only way we can actually advance is through appealing to the Supreme Lord. And that appealing to the Supreme Lord occurs through different forms of devotional service, through the different lava lakshanas, one of which is this particular form of prayer, the varna in the prayer, the vandanam, sorry, within the prayer. So what is it about servitude, right, that is important for moving forward in devotional service? What is that central characteristic of servitude that is the means by which we can progress, right? We have all the different instructions on what to do and how to do it, but what are we actually developing? What is it that we're actually bringing about? Now, there's many answers to this, but one that I was thinking of that's very pertinent to this particular verse is in respect to Dharma. A few verses previous to this, Lord Shiva is referred to as Dharma Vatsala, interesting enough. We always hear of Bhakta Vatsala, the one who finds that how can you say, feels affection towards the devotees, right? So Lord Shiva is referred to here as Dharma Vatsala, which is the one who is affectionate towards those who perform Dharma, which explains why he's turning up. I mean, why would he bother turning up for the prachetas? The prachetas are just performing their duty for their father, you know? There's nothing too devotional about that. But Lord Shiva is attracted to those who perform Dharma. He's the Dharma Vatsala. So he comes and he expresses the means by which they can actually become successful in this particular dharmic exercise by following the Dharma they're performing is following the instructions of their father. And those instructions are very difficult. They're about to submerge themselves in this water for 10,000 years. So he's going to give them something by which they can focus their mind. So what is it that they're going to be developing through this process? And one of the main things I would say that they're developing here, and this is kind of implicitly there within the verse, and also within the whole instruction and the whole context in which this is happening, is the idea of responsibility. Now, servitude obviously means we've got to be responsible. We hear the kind of externals of it when we hear of devotees, you know, doing so many things for Prabhupada in his day. They used to disappear to places like Africa and where no one had been, no devotees had been for a long time. They went to all over the world, China, different places where devotional service was not something that would be seen as being, you know, something wanted. And they risked everything for Prabhupada. They took the responsibility on their hands to go and spread Krishna consciousness, just in the same way as Prabhupada took the responsibility to perform the instructions of his spiritual master, of his guru. So what is this responsibility? So responsibility is there within devotional service, but you could also say responsibility is also outside of devotional service. We have so many responsible people in the world. Everyone's performing a responsibility. Everyone's got responsibilities that they're doing. The difference between devotional service, the responsibility that comes in seva, in service, and the responsibility outside of service is one in terms of where that responsibility is placed, right? So within devotional service, the responsibility is towards Krishna, right? That one performs all actions towards Krishna, and one tries to elevate themselves for Krishna. So all the responsibility is basically Krishna. That's the pure level of devotional service. Obviously, there's gradations in this. Then you have outside of devotional service, what is responsibility about? It's really a give-take relationship. When someone performs a responsibility in this world, they're thinking, okay, so what's in it for me? What am I going to get from this? You know, you see CEOs of big companies taking on all these responsibilities. You know, they got stress up to their eyeballs, you know, but what's the bottom line? The bottom line is they're going to make money and have a comfortable life and get their power. It's all selfish. Politicians are out there. They take responsibility for the populace. You know, they're supposed to like serve people in a country, serve everything. According to the prachetas later on, you'll see they're serving not just people, but animals and trees. They get mad at the trees later on, you'll see. But the responsibility, they're supposed to have responsibility for the people, but what is their real responsibility? It really boils down to themselves. It might be in name only. They might say, oh, we'll give benefits to the people, we'll help the people, we'll cut taxes for the people, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, why are they doing all this? Just to get voted back in. They're just doing it because the whole reason for their doing it is so that they can actually gain power. They can remain in power. They can maintain that power. They can maintain that position. They can maintain their income, so on and so forth. So it's a selfish thing. And we see the same thing happening in Bhagavad Gita, actually, interestingly enough. If you look at the beginning of Gita, when Arjuna enters the war, right? He enters this battle originally for good purposes. It's Dharma. He's performing his Dharma, right? It's a Dharma Kshetra, right? So he's performing his Dharma on the Dharma Kshetra, right? He's supposedly, his Dharma is to be a ruler, along with his 4 other brothers, you know? And he is doing this because the kingdom has been usurped, it's been taken away from him, and it's going to go downhill with Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. So he's doing this out of a duty, right? So it's a good thing. He has a responsibility. However, it's interesting that the moment he's driven to the middle of the battlefield and he looks around, he has his epiphany and he has a breakdown. And why is he having a breakdown? He's come into the whole situation on his dharma, you know, it's his duty. But now he's breaking down. And why is he breaking down? Because he's looking around and he's seeing all his relatives. He's seeing his fathers, his grandfathers, he's saying his different friends and different relatives and everyone, cousins, so on and so forth. And he's thinking, I can't fight this battle now. I'm going to be fighting the same people I originally took up the position of getting into kingship or into rulership to make happy. And you can, like, for instance, let me see if I can quickly pull up. Oh, here we go. Actually, here. At the beginning of Gita, for instance, I'll just read one, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 verses here that kind of epitomizes Arjuna's original motivation for actually getting into the battle and for ruling, right? So he says, "O Govinda," this is where he's losing it. "O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? O Madhusudana, when the teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I'm not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the 3 worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra?" So his original motivation for getting into, one of the main motivations for getting into for ruling was to have, basically it says here, to have happiness with all his relatives, to create a happy situation for himself and his relatives, you know. And then they can, you know, they can do their duties, but at the same time, they'll get something from it. You know, this is what I get from it. I'll get happiness, I'll get royal happiness, the big happiness, you know. So the problem is the irony of the situation is that Arjuna is brought into the center of the battlefield before he's going to take part in this battlefield, and all those people for which he was going to fight for, to enjoy with, are there in front of him. He's going to have to kill them all, right? So therefore, he has this breakdown. His responsibility was misplaced. He was responsible more for himself and his family than for the actual populace. Right, so he has a breakdown. And what does he say? You know, he starts talking about the family values will be destroyed, there'll be unwanted progeny, so on and so forth. And he's thinking, this dharma is no good anymore. I can't do this dharma. So therefore, I'll take another dharma. I'll go off into the forest and I'll you know, become a sadhu. I'll be a sage and sit there and just meditate, right? But he's still confused about this. It's not like he's just going to disappear. He's still confused. So what does he say? Karpanyo dosabhata sabhava prichami tvam dharma samudacheta yachtreyashan nishitam bruhitam. Shishyaste. He says shishyas. He wants to become a disciple, a servant of Krishna. Right? So he says, I'm confused about my duty. I've lost composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. What should I do? I'm your disciple. I'm a soul surrendered unto you. What should I do? You know, so he's now just lost it so much. He's going, I don't know what to do, right? I had all this dharma. I had it all figured out. And now it's just all collapsed from under me. My responsibilities, I don't know what my responsibility is anymore, right? So he's lost it. So then he becomes a servant. And then Krishna tells him what to do, what the responsibility of a servant is. And gradually he goes through it. He starts off with explaining, the body. And then he goes into, what just perform your acts. He goes into karma yoga, perform your duties without expecting results, right? The results you're expecting have just been smashed completely. You haven't got them anymore, so that was completely useless, that program. Just leave it out, go away from that, put it aside. What you got to do now is change. You got to change what's your responsibility. So just first of all, do it as a responsibility itself. Just perform your duty without expecting results from the duty itself. And then gradually he introduces, devotional service of bhakti. And then finally, sarva dharma parityajya, give up all dharmas and just surrender unto me. Ultimately it comes to that. So the dharma has changed, and the dharma is all about serving Krishna. It's all about connecting with Krishna. So that is servitude. Servitude is a responsibility towards Krishna. And that's what we're developing when we're actually becoming or trying to become servants of Krishna. We're trying to become responsible in our service for Krishna, rather than being responsible for ourselves. So it's a transference of selfishness or selfish responsibility to that of responsibility for the other, for the divine other, for Krishna. And in a sense, this is what Shiva is talking about here. Lord Shiva is dealing with the idea that the Prachetas are about to go into the water. They're about to do these austerities. They have big responsibilities afterwards. So therefore, get the responsibility right. Get it right. It's all about service to Krishna. And these prayers are all about connecting with Vishnu. But interestingly enough, as I spoke about yesterday, is the Prachetas come out to the water and then they forget this for a moment. And what happens is they decide that, they come out of the water. I'm going to give you a preview of what's going to happen. They come out of the water and then they see that the area they went into, even though it's expressed a couple of verses later, there was trees around, that the area they're in was completely covered in trees and weeds and everything. And just like a gardener who walks into their garden after a while, where previously it had been pristine, all of a sudden there's weeds everywhere. The gardener will kind of feel an anger towards the weeds. So that's what the Prachetas feel. They feel this anger towards the trees, and they invoke fire and wind, and they start burning everything. And then Soma comes and kind of pacifies them and say, actually, these trees and weeds, you're supposed to be protecting them. You're supposed to be looking after them. So again, he's reminding them of their duty. It's not about them. It's not about their anger. Anger is just a symptom of misplaced responsibility. That's one of them. Right? If I get angry about something, it's because I think that someone's insulting me and it's all about me or something like that. Whereas real responsibility in that case was towards all living entities. So they were reminded again, look, it's not about you. It's about actually being responsible for others. And they should remember the actual teachings of Shiva, that actually everything is based on connecting with the Supreme and the instructions of the Supreme. So I'm going to stop here. Is any comments or questions or whatever else, please let loose.
Thank you, Aishvarya Prabhu. I wrote in the chat to everyone to write their questions, or if they want to voice them to be brief, as we don't have much time. The DDs are the greeting is at 8 here, so on the top of the hour. But I do have a question if nobody has written anything or asked. You said that one can listen to direct instructions from Paramatma, but it seems like a lottery kind of thing. Like this person didn't really deserve it, but he heard Paramatma or Krishna showed up, and it's like, what's happening there? Is it a lotto for devotees and non-devotees? And if you get lucky, then Paramatma will talk to you, or you will have a darshan. What's the process like?
I don't know. It sounds like the paradox, doesn't it? It always comes up, here Paramatma, here we're talking about, super soul, instruct me, So it seems like there's something within scripture that means that the Paramatma has to speak to us. But I think, I mean, ultimately, what is the Bhagavatam? What are these scriptures really teaching us? They're teaching us about, and I think I tried to bring it up in the class, that the scriptures are teaching us gradually to purify ourselves, and that purification will enable us to hear properly, you know. And we might claim that we're getting somewhere in devotional service, you know, but at the end of the day, for us to be at that pure platform, as for instance Prabhupada was, is a long way to go, at least for me, and I'm sure a few others are humble enough to say something like that as well, for the most majority of us. So it's a matter of purification. It's a matter of how advanced in our purification we are to be able to hear that voice of Paramatma from within, all those instructions, however they turn up from Paramatma within. And like I was trying to say before, that if we don't have that purification, then yeah, it's exactly like you said, it's a lotto. You know, you've no idea what's talking to you. It could be a mind, it could be a memory of someone saying something, it could be anything. And I have met many devotees who think that Paramatma is talking to them, and I'm almost certain it's not. But yeah, it boils down to the idea that we really have to, in order for devotional service to be successful and to be able to understand the instructions of Krishna, we have to follow. And that following is, you know, as Rupa Goswami, the success of devotional service comes from Utsaha Nishchaya Darya Tata Karma Pravartana Sangha Tyago Satovrite Sadhe Bhakti Pushiditi. That is the the Utsaha, the enthusiasm. Without enthusiasm, we had to have enthusiasm to perform devotional service. We have to have confidence. We don't have confidence that the process will take us anywhere. It's pointless. Daryat, we have to have patience. Patience is something we kind of forget about. Sometimes patience takes years. Tatta karma varata, that we follow the processes, the tatta karmas, all the different processes of devotional service. Sangatyaga, we give up the association of non-devotees, and we give, and satovite, following the footsteps of the acharyas, and hear the acharyas. So sometimes Paramatma, as we hear, is spoken through the guru, is spoken through the devotees. Paramatma speaks through those as well. So it's not necessarily an internal hearing of someone in the mind, but also through the devotees and through the guru as well. That's all I can think.
That was good. Thank you. I think devotees are writing something.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai, thank you for such a wonderful class this morning. And my question is, and you've addressed it a little bit in regards to dealing with more responsibility, but how do we deal with when we're in such a stagnant state? Although we may know all these processes, how do we activate the enthusiasm to really go on with this process? Because I find, having been a devotee for a while, sometimes I get into these stagnant states and I'm not able to move forward. What would be some suggestions on how to regain that enthusiasm in regards to our service and serving Krishna and seeing, being more involved in this process?
That's the big question. I mean, one thing with the Rupa Goswami verse earlier on is the patience. Sometimes we just go through these periods, and I think sometimes we just have to just wait to get through it. Sometimes it's not so much fixing it as surviving it. So there's that. The second thing is, one thing that is connected with the idea of responsibility is the understanding of the responsibility. In the verse, it pops up as well. The idea that we become fixed, and how do we become fixed? We can become fixed by not forgetting Krishna, by remembering Krishna. And that's the whole thing, not forgetting. And this concept of remembrance is, I'm just looking at time, make sure I don't go over here. So it's a very interesting question, because the idea of remembrance is emphasized by the Goswamis, right? And we hear Prabhupada talking about it as well. Always remember Krishna, never forget him, right? That's our central tenet, right? But what is this remembrance? What does it mean? Does it mean just like sitting here and just like remembering rote or whatever, different verses? It's much more than that. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and also specifically in Bhakti Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami, which Prabhupada takes a lot of his purports from, actually. Jiva Goswami talks about remembrance, smarana, in terms of 5 stages. I'm going to flesh this out a little bit for a second. So you have the 5 stages. Again, first one is smarana again, just remembrance of things. The second one is, if I remember, was it dharana or dhyana? I think it was dharana, which is a type of meditation, but not full. Then you have dhyana, a little bit more intense. You have dhruva anusmriti, which is continued remembrance, which is what Prabhupada talks about when someone is pure and they just don't forget Krishna. They're always thinking about Krishna, right? At all moments. And then you have samadhi, right? Samadhi is remembrance. And remembrance is right the way through all the different sections of the Sandarbhas, right? Basically, and also in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami, that actually the central focus of devotional service is remembering Krishna. You know, everything, we remember the pastimes of Krishna. Whatever we do, we remember. We remember them in order to, I mean, for instance, we have Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, we have Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, then we have the different Sadhya Bhaktis, you know, the pure devotees platforms such as Bhava and Prema. And in all of them, it's all about remembering pastimes, remembering Krishna's form, activities, and so on and so forth. All we're reading here is just to give us some ammunition for our memories, for our remembrance and everything. So remembrance is not just a static thing, it's an active thing. And a remembrance occurs in all our daily life. It's just a matter, I was thinking about this actually, it's not so much we add remembrance to our life, it's just that we transfer whatever memories we have into the proper types of memories, right? So just think about it. All our daily life, there's memories constantly going into our heads. We're remembering this, we're remembering that. That happened. I hate that person did that to me. That was good. That was nice. I remember that as sweet or whatever, so on and so forth, right? Lie down in bed, memories hit us like anything. You know, it's like constant memories going on. So the cultivation of remembrance is that of transferring just silly memories to memories on Krishna, whatever all his devotees, and so on and so forth. And once we start doing that, then it becomes much more of a dynamic process. If we take darshan of the Murti, right? If we're not at the pure platform, we won't be able to see, what's that verse? Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Bhadam Sada Pasyanti Surya from Rig Veda, it's where, as an ordinary person sees the sun's rays in the sky, a pure and learned Vaishnava will be able to see the supreme abode of the Lord everywhere. So a pure Vaishnava will see the supreme abode of the Lord on the altar. They'll see Krishna as the Murti is non-different from Krishna, right? But for myself, speaking for myself, I know what I see stone. I don't see much. I just see nice clothing or whatever. But the moment we start, and if we try to practice that, the moment we start trying to bring our memories and remembrances of different pastimes of the scriptures, of the form, of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness into the Murti, then it becomes a live situation. And then we're moving to something that eventually becomes what the Goswamis called rasa, bhakti rasa, where it becomes an interaction. We bring something. Krishna is the source of all rasas. Right? But we bring ourselves into this rasa as well. You've heard of the term rasabas, right? The mixing of unwanted things, you know. So that means it's not like I go into the kitchen here and put a sandesh in my mouth and it's just I'm getting the taste. Because rasa just means taste, and that's it. It's a one-way thing. No, with that rasa, it's a dynamic. You know, and those remembrances are that which bring that dynamic to being. So for me, in answer to your question, as I can understand it, the best way to improve ourselves, and I'm speaking to myself here, is to just cultivate those remembrances at all times, whatever we can. And that brings about the dynamics of Krishna consciousness at all beings. Anyway. We try. We can only try, right? I'm not sure when you're okay. Sorry.
By the way, I think I think we'll be okay. I was just locked in the memory that when the deities show up, you know, everybody drops. But we are all at home, most of us, so we don't have to. We can keep it mute and the camera and the temple room that you can see. we'll turn to the deities, and you can continue speaking, and people can continue asking questions. So there is no time limit. Just for your understanding.
I don't want to take the place of the deities with my awful voice.
No, you will never do that. Don't, rest assured.
Yeah, I should understand the immenseness of the deities compared with me, right? I think.
Yes. And we all fold our hands, but we will continue to listen to you. Any other questions?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for your class. I really appreciated the points you were making about responsibility. I just have a quick question. I was wondering, how can a devotee know whether or not they're ready to take on more responsibility in devotional service?
Well, that sounds like a management issue. But just from a general point of view, I guess, just from our own, like, looking at ourselves and where we are. What are our responsibilities really? Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about three main responsibilities that the devotees have in a specific order. That first we have a responsibility to our health, right? And then we have a responsibility to our sadhana, and then we have a responsibility to our seva, right? So in that order. Right. So our first responsibility is to our health, because if we don't have good health, then we can't do the other two. It's very difficult, right? And if we don't have a good sadhana, then service is almost useless. We need to actually know why we're doing the sadhana. So if we're ready to accept more service, and our body is willing to cope with more service, and our sadhana is not getting disrupted by taking on more service, then why not? Why not take more responsibility in that sense, right? But if it's interfering with the other two, then you're going to end up with problems along the line. So you really do have to look after yourself. It sounds selfish, but it's not. Looking after the body you're looking after the body for Krishna, because that's what he's given you, and it's Krishna's property, and you have to make sure it's functioning properly so that you can use it in his service. Without that, it's pointless, So you have to make sure that balance is there, before you accept anything that goes above your ability to be able to look after yourself, and also above your ability to do enough sadhana. And one thing I should mention is that I spent many years distributing books, and thought of it, unfortunately, we were talking about remembrance again, thought of it in terms of just being externals, that if I just perform this service, naturally Krishna will just give me, mercy. And I was really a kripa case, just a mercy case, just I'll do the act, and then Krishna can deal with the rest, And after a while, you start to realize that actually I have a problem, because later on, when your body starts breaking down and you can't do as much as you did before, you really have to have a backup, and that backup really is the sadhana, what you've learned, and it really, you need it to continue. So you have to really be aware of that actually your service has to be kind of infiltrated or how can I say, saturated with sadhana as well. Otherwise, you'll have a problem as well. So that's all I'm saying. Just the balance has to be there. You have to make sure from yourself that you're ready for that. As for the management part, that's none of my business.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhu.
No problem. Hare Krishna. A nice picture of cows there.
It's not a picture.
It's actually a video. It's actually a live feed for the cows.
Live feed, and the cow has a name. The picture has a name, Pishangi. She's the one who's listening to you. The other ones are probably not very interested at this point.
Yeah, there you go. It's funny. What is this guy talking about?
Yeah, there's every morning. The cows are shown, and it's a different cow that is allowed to listen to Bhagavatam class, and the other ones kind of hang in there.
They get to hear what was spoken about from that one who heard it, right?
Well, yeah, when
Passed along the line.
they're chewing the cud, they discuss
Translated.
Bhagavatam class. Yes.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Prabhu? Prabhu?
If there's no questions, no, I'll let you get to your darshan, please don't let me get in the way of that.
Well, going once, going twice. We wanna thank Aishwarya Prabhu for his kindness and erudition, for having spoken to us, and we will reconvene this afternoon as Yaduvar Prabhu at 6:30 p.m. our time is going to do a slideshow on Srila Prabhupada. So please give your blessings to Aishwarya Prabhu, say your thanks, your folded hands, or voice them, and we'll go on with the program.
Just want to say thank you for letting me speak. It's very nice to be involved in this. It's not only, it just helps me a lot to be able to just, listen to myself, here where I'm at, as well as, to try and do something for you as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Okay. Until next time. Haribo.
Krishna.
Auf Wiedersehen, as they say over here.